Around 3 a.m., in the lead-gray waters west of the Cape of Good Hope, the supertanker Helios Mariner, a metal leviathan nearly 340 meters long, with the displacement of a light aircraft carrier, plowed steadily through the swells. In her holds were 2.4 million barrels of crude oil, worth more than $280 million, and a crew of 34 sailors from 6 nations: the United States, the United Kingdom, Croatia, the Philippines, Poland, and Saudi Arabia. It was a voyage that seemed completely routine, until strange blips began to appear on the radar, 4 nautical miles off the starboard beam. Within 3 minutes, a massive mothership had deployed 5 high-speed skiffs. Each one carried between 8 and 10 gunmen, racing in at nearly 50 knots. Figures stood upright in the boats, RPG-7s on their shoulders, PKM machine guns in their hands, spraying fire wildly at the tanker's hull. It was a split-axis attack, coordinated between a mothership and multiple small craft, a tactic rarely seen in the long history of piracy. On the bridge, Captain Cole Jensen ordered,
"All fuel valves shut and the entire crew to fall back to the Citadel."
Transmitting an emergency distress call.
The Helios Mariner could not fire back. A single stray round into a pipeline or tank hatch and 2.4 million barrels of crude would turn the vessel into a floating bomb in the middle of the ocean. Could the crew hold out under such a frenzied assault? And what force could possibly reach a supertanker on the verge of detonating in the stormy seas of the South Indian Ocean? Before we go on, make sure you subscribe to Titan Defense and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next real-world operations we bring to the screen. Moments later, the first explosions hit. A string of RPGs screamed across the deck, throwing off showers of sparks. The hull shuddered violently. The Helios Mariner was officially under fire as the first salvo tore through the night. The ship jolted like a giant creature stabbed straight in the heart. On deck, pieces of overheated steel broke loose and clattered down, sizzling as they struck the cold metal below. The automatic fire detection system tripped. Black smoke billowed from the port side, where an RPG-7 had punched through the outer plating and detonated in a localized blast.
Shut all main valves. Isolate cargo tank 3.
Chief Officer Luka Vukovic's voice boomed through the internal comms. Teams of sailors sprinted down narrow passageways, sweat mixing with the stench of fuel and burning insulation. Their shadows flickered under blood-red emergency lighting. Outside, the 5 skiffs tightened their circle, pouring in continuous fire. PKMs and AK-47s roared in long bursts against the steel skin, leaving hundreds of blackened dents. From above, the ship's optics picked out a gray mothership, nearly 40 meters long, riding at anchor 2 nautical miles away and lowering more small boats. They coordinated over encrypted radios, moving with the discipline of a special operations unit. This was no longer a loose band of pirates. It was a trained, organized force. The crew had no choice but to fall back deep into the Citadel, a steel fortress in the center of the ship. The Citadel door locked with a dual magnetic system capable of withstanding a C4 blast at 2 meters. Inside, 34 people were crammed into a suffocating space, listening to the clang of metal and the hammering of rounds on the hull like war drums. They activated an Inmarsat satellite transmitter and pushed out a distress message, Delta 94, with their coordinates attached, hoping the relay network of the U.S. Navy at Diego Garcia would pick it up. 12 minutes after the signal went out, the attackers were already on the main deck. They carried thermal cutting torches, trying to slice into the bridge doors. Another group shoved smoke grenades into ventilation intakes, trying to force the crew to crack the Citadel open. Inside, the sensor displays vibrated non-stop. External heat signatures jumped and shifted, the hull temperature rising, just a few degrees below the danger threshold. Captain Cole stayed calm, eyes fixed on the countdown of the cooling system. 85 minutes until vapor levels in the tanks reached maximum ignition risk.
"No one opens that door. No one fires back. We hold comms, that's it,"
he said slowly, his voice low but final. Outside, pirate voices screamed in a blend of Somali and Arabic. Threats, demands, calls for radio contact. Another RPG slammed into an auxiliary deck. Black smoke flooded into the ventilation system, making the air inside the citadel thick with the stench of burning metal. Filipino sailor Miguel Santos stared at his watch, breathing hard.
How long before they cut their way in?
He asked. The captain answered without hesitation.
No more than 90 minutes. If the Navy doesn't make it in time, we'll make sure we slow them down ourselves.
Out in the ether, a VHF military-grade radio receiver finally began to lock onto a faint signal. A string of codes flashed on the monitor. USN, command, signal acquired, standby. At the same time, the Helios Mariner's radar picked up a new contact nearly 200 nautical miles to the north, coming up from the Indian Ocean, in the patrol lane where U.S. forces regularly moved. In the darkness of the citadel, Captain Cole's eyes brightened, and he murmured,
"Someone out there heard us."
The Helios Mariner's Delta 94 distress call was finally captured by the MUOS 5 satellite. At the 5th Fleet's command center in the Panama Basin, red warning lights snapped on. Rear Admiral Nathan Cole, veteran of Operation Arctic Spear, stared at the electronic map. On the screen, the icon of a massive tanker flashed at 34 degrees south, 17 degrees east, roughly 200 nautical miles off the Cape of Good Hope. 6 smaller symbols ringed it, the skiffs closing in. Cole tightened the strap of his cap and said in a controlled voice,
We have something we've never seen before. A supertanker carrying 2.4 million barrels of oil has been taken, and we are not allowed to put a round into that hull.
The Combat Information Center went utterly silent. A young officer spoke up.
Admiral, air power can take out the mothership. But if we're off by even a little, all 2.4 million barrels will go up.
Cole nodded. He understood exactly how sharp this knife's edge was. The Helios Mariner carried enough fuel to set an entire stretch of ocean on fire.
Activate Operation Silent Ocean. No direct fire on the hull. Rescue will be Navy SEALs.
The entire mission is constrained to 180 minutes.
Immediately, the amphibious assault ship USS Wasp, operating near the Chagos Archipelago, was designated as the staging platform. On its flight deck, ground crews spun up 2 MH-60R Seahawks and a CH-47F Chinook modified for long-range insertion. A squadron of F-35C Lightning II fighters received orders to launch and patrol overhead, intercepting any unidentified contact approaching the area. In Wasp's Combat Information Center, green light washed over the faces of sailors preparing for what would be the first non-kinetic counter-piracy mission of its kind. Lieutenant Colonel Daniel Price, commander of SEAL Team 6, Gold Squadron, held a metal map board and pointed at the chart.
This is the Helios Mariner, 340 meters long, about 68 meters high. Main deck is open, but every valve farm is insanely flammable. We insert by fast rope in 3 elements. 1 hits the bridge. 2 blocks access to the citadel. 3 locks down the central deck. No grenades. No rounds into the deck plates. And you only shoot when the target is clear of the hull.
The room stayed silent. Everyone understood a single stray bullet could trigger the worst environmental disaster of the century. Admiral Cole picked up, his words like they were carved into stone.
You're not getting naval gunfire. You're not getting strike UAVs overhead.
But I promise you, the entire sky over the South Indian Ocean will be watching every step you take.
The Helios Mariner will not fall into pirate hands, and she will not blow.
The 2 Seahawks, carrying the reconnaissance elements, spun their rotors, chopping up sea mist in the faint pink of first light. Behind them, the Chinook lifted heavily off the deck, hauling 12 SEAL operators and their specialized kit, suppressed MP7s, high-speed descent ropes, and electromagnetic breaching tools. In the command module, Cole watched their thermal feeds. On radar, 3 green tracks slid along the curve of the equator, heading straight for the target. He drew a breath and started the countdown.
We've got 88 minutes before vapor levels hit critical. Any mistake is a disaster.
The approach began. 1 Seahawk climbed higher off the port side. Its GAU-17 minigun fired a blocking burst into the water around the mothership, building a curtain of spray and noise to drag every eye away. The other dove over the Helios Mariner's aft deck, the darkest stretch of steel on the ship. "Fast rope!" Logan shouted. SEALs slid down the lines one after another. 12 black shapes dropped like spears, touching down almost soundlessly. Immediately, Immediately, they split into 3 teams. Logan's element driving toward the bridge, the second team sealing off the citadel access, the third covering the central deck and cutting off all pirate escape routes. Below deck, boot steps rang on steel, mixing with the whine of wind through gaps in the structure. A pirate stepped out from a stairwell. Before he could react, a suppressed MP7 round punched through his shoulder and threw him into the rail with a dull thud. Another group of SEALs closed on the bridge door. Logan held up 3 fingers, then tossed a cold smoke grenade inside. In the dense cloud, 3 pirates panicked. One fired wildly toward the doorway, rounds splintering the armored glass.
Move up!
The SEALs shifted angle,
Contact,
surged
front.
in, and dropped
that,
all
moving.
3 in 14 seconds. At the central passageway, the second element reached the citadel access. From inside, SOS taps came back. 3 short, 2 long. Proof that the crew was still alive.
This is SEAL Team. Open the door.
Operator Jack Monroe said into his radio, voice low and steady. 10 seconds later, the steel door swung open. Tactical flashlights swept across exhausted faces, clothes soaked with sweat and streaked with oil. One by one, the sailors were pulled out and moved toward a safe zone on the aft deck. Outside, 2 pirate skiffs tried to close the distance again. Seahawk 1 immediately answered with warning fire. 50 caliber rounds stitched the water in front of the bows, sending tall white geysers into the air. One skiff flipped, the other spun around and fled. On the mothership, fire erupted from the midsection after another warning burst, forcing the support element to abandon ship. On the Helios Mariner's deck, the stink of burning metal slowly thinned. An American flag went up on the superstructure. Logan keyed his secure radio.
Citadel secured. All crew accounted for. Hostiles on board neutralized. No secondary explosions detected.
In the USS Wasp's command center, Admiral Cole finally exhaled. Silent Ocean, Phase 1 was complete. But he knew this was only the beginning. Captured pirate radio traffic pointed to a logistics hub on the Somali coast preparing to respond. West of the Cape of Good Hope, a thin veil of haze lay over the sea like gray ash. Moonlight reflected off smoke plumes rising from the burning mothership and glinted along the massive hull of the Helios Mariner. On deck, SEAL Team 6 worked wordlessly, inspecting each compartment, each pipeline, every valve cluster. Scorched metal fragments from the RPG strikes still littered the deck, but hull temperature had dropped back into the safe zone. After nearly 2 hours locked in the Citadel, the crew could finally breathe normally again. Chief Engineer Andrei Petrov sank down onto the steel deck, eyes fixed on the pressure gauge.
Main valves are stable. Deck temperature down another 3 degrees. The ship's still alive.
His voice still shaky but full of relief. Logan and 3 operators moved into the bridge. Inside, they found a metal case containing 2 encrypted radios labeled Almirage, manufactured in Iran. The frequency banks showed they had been in active use less than 2 hours earlier. Logan immediately sent a secure report back to the Wasp.
We've got encrypted radios. Enemy net still hot. Request rapid analysis. This could be a shore-based command link.
Outside, Seahawk 2 kept circling, its IR searchlight sweeping the surface. In the thermal view, the remaining pirates glowed as drifting specks aboard overturned boats. 17 survivors were ordered taken into custody for interrogation. 2 RHIB patrol craft dropped from the Wasp's davits and sped out to transfer the prisoners. The SEALs finished their sweep. 8 pirates killed, 17 captured. Recovered weapons included 4 PKM machine guns, 3 RPG-7 launchers, 12 AK-47s, and dozens of crates of 7.62 millimeter ammunition.
On the lower left.
Helios Mariner's engineers worked alongside the SEALs to check electrical systems, valve arrays, and fire pumps. Over the radio, a British technician spoke.
Automatic fire suppression is back online.
The ship can sail again under escort. From the bridge, Logan pushed his consolidated report. The Helios Mariner secure, 34 crew members unharmed, no critical structural damage, and full fire control and stability protocols activated. At the Wasp's command center, Admiral Cole nodded and gave the order to begin Phase 2, tracking the pirates' financing and shore-based infrastructure.
They're not acting alone. Find me whoever gave the orders.
Navy SIGINT specialists from the NSA's maritime detachment immediately pulled data from the captured radios. The results froze the room. The encrypted signal traced back to a point on the Somali coast, long suspected of being a hub for smuggled oil and weapons. The core file in the radio's memory carried the identifier GAIA-9, a pirate network bankrolled by an underground oil-running syndicate with links to armed groups tied to Al-Shabaab. On the Helios Mariner's deck, the first rays of sunrise cut through the lingering smoke and lit the massive hull. Just as the light spread, the radar picked up a new moving contact 80 nautical miles off Somalia, likely a logistics vessel belonging to Gaia-9. Cole stared at the screen, his voice.
We saved the heart. Now we cut off the blood supply.
He turned to the operations officer.
Bring Reaper Alpha online. Prep Hellfire. Silent Ocean is going to the counterstrike phase.
At 12,000 meters, MQ-9 Reaper Alpha 1 circled silently over the Somali coast. Through its infrared optics, rectangular heat signatures stood out clearly. The Gaia-9 logistics depot, about 12 kilometers inland from the town of Alula. On the Wasp's main display, the downlinked image was razor-sharp. 4 concrete warehouses, a huge fuel tank, and 4 fast boats moored beside a small pier. Admiral Cole boxed the targets and spoke in an even tone.
Confirm no civilians on site. Priority targets are the ammo dump and that fuel tank. We hit it clean.
The operations room went. Radar techs tuned the jamming frequencies while the ACM Raven 2 electronic warfare cell pumped out signals to choke all radio traffic within a 10 nautical mile radius. Every transmitter on that stretch of Somali coast vanished from the tactical picture, smothered in noise.
At the UAV control station, First Lieutenant Ava Mitchell, the fires coordinator, locked her laser designator onto the targets. The ammo depot became target Alpha, the fuel tank, target Bravo. She drew a breath and spoke into her headset.
Reaper Alpha 1 ready to launch Hellfire. Targets locked.
Fire on my authority.
A low hiss rolled through the ship's speakers, like wind ripping through a cannon. An AGM-114 Hellfire left the rail, streaking away in a white line against the dull gray. 48 seconds later, the Somali shoreline lit up. A massive fireball rose, secondary explosions chaining out like a row of firecrackers. The nearby fuel tank ignited, sending a column of black smoke hundreds of meters into the air, twisting like an oil tornado. Electro-optical sensors registered ground temperatures spiking above 400 degrees Celsius, with shock waves washing out half a kilometer from the blast center. On the Wasp's screens, Cole watched every frame without blinking. Beside him, Ava reported.
Target Alpha is gone. Target Bravo detonated with secondaries, no civilian heat signatures detected. BDA, 83% of objectives neutralized.
Cole nodded once.
Reaper Bravo, prosecute the boat moorings. Use GBU-12s, no more Hellfires.
Another MQ-9 rolled in. A GBU-12 Paveway 2 laser-guided bomb separated from its wing, drifting down in a slow precise. When it struck, a white flash filled the field, and the sound rolled back through the radar speakers. The Gaia-9 logistics hub collapsed in on itself, wiped from the map. Within 5 minutes, every known GAIA-9 transmission went silent. On military frequencies, there was nothing but static and the sound of the sea. In the command center, Cole exhales and leaned back in his chair. He knew this strike hadn't just destroyed a depot. It had severed the financial and logistical lifeline behind dozens of pirate attacks. Silent Ocean's counterstrike phase was complete. On the Helios Mariner's deck, the sea had calmed. The crew had been moved to a secure area, and the ship was once again underway, pushing west toward the Atlantic. Far on the horizon, smoke still rose from the Somali coastline, a warning to anyone else tempted to lay hands on that strategic oil route. Looking down at the chart, Cole spoke softly, but with finality.
Intel. Speed. Precision.
By 6 p.m. that same day, the South Indian Ocean was quiet again. Only gentle waves lapped against the enormous steel hull of the Helios Mariner, the ship that had survived one of the boldest attacks in modern maritime history. The Fifth Fleet's final report to the Pentagon was concise. All 34 crew members safe, 8 pirates killed, 17 captured. Not a single round had struck the tanker's hull. More than 80% of Gaia-9's support infrastructure was destroyed, its weapons and funding pipeline nearly severed. After a detailed technical inspection, the Helios Mariner continued toward the Atlantic under escort from the destroyer USS Mason. In his written after-action summary, Rear Admiral Nathan Cole added only one line. This victory did not come from firepower, but from speed, intelligence, and discipline. Silent Ocean became a new case study in modern warfare. When brute force is off the table, accurate intelligence, rapid deployment, and precise application of force become the 3 pillars of power. On Navy radio nets, one Helios Mariner sailor said simply,
"We didn't survive because we were lucky. We survived because someone was always watching us from the sky."
The Reaper's silhouette turned slowly west, closing out a new chapter in non-kinetic warfare. If this story made your heart skip a beat, subscribe to Titan Defense and turn on the bell so you don't miss the next operation, where every round and every decision carries the weight of discipline and courage.